Welcome to Global Connections on ThinkTech Hawaii. I'm your host, Jay Fidell. This episode is called New Monetary Systems in Our New World. How will they affect the evolution of the global order? Our co-host for the show is Dr. Roopmati Khandekar. Welcome to the show, Roopmati.
Hello, Ajay. Thank you for having me on your show. Always a great pleasure.
The trajectory of the contemporary financial markets is going to set the stage for the future of everyone. Changes are overwhelming because of the interplay of geopolitics and the financial markets and currencies. The manipulation of these markets has created huge waves of change and volatility, and we need to understand and deal with them. So, Roopmati, let's talk about the reserve currency. In the way of American belief in American exceptionalism, America believes that it has and should have the reserve currency. What is the reserve currency, and where does it stand among all the currencies, and how is it doing? Can you talk about that?
Yeah, Jay. So the US dollar sits at the center of the global financial system, and it dictates what is happening in the international monetary system. So basic economics, Jay, that when the dollar strengthens, liquidity tightens in the market, you hold on to your dollars. And when dollar weakens, there's capital flows, you're selling your dollars, and that flow of capital moves into global assets. So other commodities are being brought. So, Jay, this is this kind of thing had happened. Let's take a peek into the past. That in 1985, the US dollar had become too strong, and the US exports were thus falling, and factories were shutting, trade losses were happening. So US, Japan, Germany, France, and the UK made a pact, a deal known as the Plaza Accord, in which they decided to weaken the dollar. Now, a weaker dollar would mean, Jay, that the dollar fell by over 50% in 3 years. Dollar to yen became 260 to 120. And the yen doubled in value, and gold was being bought at that time. So you had rising prices of gold in the 80s, mainly because of this intervention. And today, in today's contemporary world, you have US trade losses, Japan under pressure, and yen being weak. So this is known as the Plaza Accord 2.0, in which the economists say that there is a financial intervention that is happening, in which you are having this intentional dollar weakness, which would fuel rallies in stocks, commodities, and alternate assets. So you have the yen suddenly strengthening because these possessions are for selling of a dollar. And if we see, Jay, that the dollar yen FX pair, foreign exchange pair, is the most important player in the financial market today, because the yen has stooped to multi-decade lows, and the yen is Japan is the largest holder of US investor bonds, approximately $1,336 billion. That is over $1 trillion. So you have China at second position with around 816, and UK at 754. So, Jay, when most important parameter for US dollar is the yen. And if that is falling, they are selling the US Treasury bonds. This would mean, to shield the yen, their bonds would yield higher and destabilize the US bond market. So the US has two options in this case: to wait back and watch the financial crisis, or second is to step in and defend the yen. That is, you sell the US dollars and simultaneously buy the yen. So, Jay, this devalues the US dollar even more, and the yen gets stronger. And in these reasons, the silver and the gold moon up. Same thing. We are explaining the situation which is current right now. Donald Trump said we make a lot of money with a weaker dollar, not a weak dollar. So he knows what is happening right now, and it is very much intentional. So if the dollar breaks, it won't be because of a data point or because of policy, politics, or global flows. It is a very strategic move that is taking place right now. And Jay, it is a strategy because you are playing with the prices of two important assets, like common people call it silver and gold. Now, silver, Jay, for the first time, there's a rise in the silver gold ratio. Like it is always measured in how much silver you need to buy one block of gold. And that for the first time is moving towards silver. Silver is outpacing gold. Why that has happened is because China is the largest exporter of silver. And because of this artificially created demand and they holding back the supply, basic economic rules, Jay, demand is not matched with the supply, so the prices rise. This is an artificially damned holding of silver by China. So when the prices rise, they will open the market. Silver will fall. So it's not a safe commodity to invest in. It's like your word that you use it. It's a bubble, a silver bubble that is created. Gold, on the other hand, is the commodity which is what do you say? It is the actual commodity which is going to shape politics, Jay.
You talked about how China has 870 billion of American paper. And what I've read recently is that China is not attending the auctions of American paper. And I think other countries too, because of Trump's moves, especially his dealing with and undermining the alliances that the United States has had. And so they're reluctant to attend the auctions of American paper and buy American paper. At the same time, that paper expires. So over time, you find that they hold less. So I think what we get here is that China and maybe Japan also and other countries are not buying, staying with American paper. How does that affect this? Is that a dangerous phenomenon for the United States? Does that undermine the reserve currency aspect of the American dollar?
Most definitely, Jay. It's a new financial order that we are stepping in, because earlier it was what the US did that mattered. But this time it's a bit different, because what happened is when Russia asked for the $300 billion of the bonds to fight the war, they were refused. And that made every nation sit up and think that their reserves can be frozen, and that it is not really, there's no trust in the paper now. So what happened is central banks started buying around 1,136 tons of gold in these 2 years, Jay. Just because till that point, US Treasuries was considered as one of the safest assets that a country could have. And if Russia was not paid back its money, US and increasing the US debt, endless money printing in the US, and weaponized sanctions, where their sanctions were not, the money was not given back to them. It became that the tilt fell towards gold, and gold became pure sovereignty, Jay. So China added 300 tons more gold, and now approximately their reserve is around 4,000 tons of gold. What is that? They are preparing for the yuan to become a gold-backed currency as an alternative to the dollar.
If you have a currency like RMB based on gold, and you have a loss of trust and confidence in the American dollar, then the RMB gets much stronger, doesn't it? And the American dollar gets weaker. And it just seems to me that that undermines the strength of the American dollar and its position as the global reserve currency. And where does that take us? There are benefits to having the reserve currency at the American dollar. But if the American dollar is undermined and it no longer serves as the reserve currency for the world, where does that take the U.S. vis-a-vis China, vis-a-vis Japan, vis-a-vis Russia? Russia for that matter. How does it change the global order of the valuation of currencies if the American dollar is no longer the reserve currency?
Jay, that becomes a issue because you have a U.S. ally states which will still prefer the dollar for the payments, but now new strategy of having gold-backed payments is taking place and trying to replace the dollar because gold is being presented as an alternative to dollar, and it's always a open secret that when the dollar strengthens, gold falls. When gold rises, the dollar weakens. So right now, gold is at a high, dollar is weakened. The banks are holding, central banks are all picking up gold because they believe that even if the dollar collapses, they will still have the security of the gold. So that trust has really broken in a big way, Jay. And Trump's tariff strategy has added to the mistrust, if we can say, and added to the chaos that people feel. So a brick of gold would be more valuable or more trustworthy rather than a piece of paper with Trump as the president. So that is a big factor in pushing countries away from the dollar.
Getting the message that Trump wanted to do this for some reasons, but beyond his intention and desire as a strategical matter, other things that he has done, intentionally or unintentionally, have undermined the dollar. For example, breaking up alliances. For example, his tariffs. For example, getting into arguments with China and other countries. His trade policies. All these things, whether intended or not, have an effect. Am I right? It multiplies. It's not only his intentions to value the yen and the dollar as against the dollar, but also it's the things he's doing in the country. People read about what he's doing in the country on immigration policy. People read what he's doing in the country on trying to make America first, which is becoming a kind of swear word, which he is doing vis-a-vis Canada, Mexico, Greenland, Venezuela, all these really negative things that he's doing in the Middle East, I should add. All of those things kind of feed in, and they go beyond his intention and his desire around the dollar. Am I right? And that accelerates the process of the decline of the dollar on the global markets. Am I right?
Yeah, Jay, point on you are. Because see, Jay, for over 80 years, everything has been brought and sold in terms of dollars in the world. And the most important aspect of the dollar was the petrodollar. Today, you have Saudi Arabia also running for gold. So you don't have a concept where people are still valuing or trading or feeling that trading in dollar would give them that vantage in their transactions. And Jay, Trump's policies for the common consumer, leave alone the governments. You have mortgage rates up by 1 to 2%. Your car loans have become expensive. The companies are cutting jobs. You have the cost of living up to 10 to 20% upwards. And Japan's funding of the yen backed dollar has now reduced to such a point that American families could lose up to 8,000 to 18,000 per year because of these policies. So till we are trying to find a stable footing for dollar stabilization in the international monetary market, the domestic market is also getting affected. People are not holding dollar and yens in every house. It is that the dollar itself would be devalued. Imports, exports, yes, it's a positive side. But otherwise, cost of living is a whole new different story, Jay.
It's complicated in the sense that all these things you're talking about are connected. And the variables they don't tell us how they affect other variables. We have to figure that out. So, for example, the economy. What I read recently was that Trump was trying to heat up the economy. He was doing everything he can for political reasons for the midterms. So he was going to try to heat it up by reducing the rediscount rate at the Fed and do everything he can to make manufacturing, bring manufacturing back. That's a euphemism to the United States. And he believes that tariffs are part of that and so forth. And so let's assume he heats the economy up. Let's assume he succeeds. He will do everything, including things that are not advisable, before next, November, to heat the economy up. But that could crash the economy too. That could result in inflation. Let's assume we have a heated economy and inflation in the United States. Let's assume all these other variables you talked about, are on track or off track, as the case may be. How does that affect the dollar? It seems to me that if you have a false dollar, if you have a dollar that ultimately cannot be trusted, we can look around and say, "Oh, the stock market's going up. Isn't that wonderful?" But the guys on Wall Street, they play to make a buck today. But that may not be for the long term, or even the intermediate term, or even the short term. Any day, the market could effectively collapse. And if it does, what happens to the dollar? What I'm getting at is that if these things go south because Trump tries to, quote, heat up the economy, make the economy really hot, and it blows up on him, which I believe that's what will happen, then you have the decline of the dollar, and you have countries like Russia, China, trying to take the dollar off the reserve currency. In other words, decline it so that it's no longer the reserve currency. Can you talk about how that would work if the American economy, does a sharp nosedive? How does that affect the value of the dollar, the status of the dollar is the reserve currency in the world, is a trading currency, so to speak, in the world? And if it does, you get a kind of echo effect. If the American dollar declines on the world stage in the international monetary system, how does that affect you and me? How does that affect our lives together here in the country? It sounds to me like if the economy goes down and the dollar goes down, then the economy and our quality of life will go further down. What are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, Jay, it is. He is playing with this vicious cycle of economics that you say. Because he's trying to devalue the dollar, the pockets are getting pinched, and he doesn't mind that because he's thinking of his business. He's treating America as his own personal business firm, and that firm needs to make profit, not its employees, and not its that way that it's harsh business that he's doing. And the devaluation of the dollar, whether it raises the cost of living or not, it's masked always by jingoism of patriotism. You really want to make America great again, and you forget about the other things. But really, it is not about that. It is about how it's going to affect the pockets. And whether it's going to be, like I said, it's not something of those days when it was Plaza Accord that you could devalue the dollar and come back with a stronger dollar. Today, if you're going to make the dollar weaker, there's a big chance that the dollar will be forgotten altogether. And the massive backing for that is the BRICS strategy, Jay. They don't just meet up for politics, they meet up for monetary displacement of the dollar. They are creating a system in which they are moving the reserves to be backed by gold. They want the dollar to be totally replaced. They are buying and selling oil without being a petrodollar transaction. So today, if Trump is following on the lines of making the dollar weak, bouncing back with a stronger dollar, it is going to be replaced, displaced, and forgotten about. So he comes up with this whole new system, like you talked about, the stock market and the commodities and trading. And he promotes the Bitcoin, the cryptocurrency. Now, crypto is banned in nations like China, India. They don't buy. They have the largest stock markets and largest investment everywhere, but they don't buy this because they don't believe in this non-government backed currency known as Bitcoin. And the Bitcoin has the strongest inverse relationship with the dollar J and the strongest positive correlation with the Japanese yen. So it's lots of Japan's yen and dollar that we are talking of. So when this coordinated intervention, financial intervention begins, the dollar weakens structurally. Okay, the capital starts looking for assets where they are undervalued, and that's when crypto performs in this kind of an environment. So, crypto is a manipulated currency. Technically, we don't know who's setting the cost, what is its USP. Trump, with the $37 trillion debt, thinks that he can write off this debt just by valuing Bitcoin at 37,000, and then you value it at 37 trillion, it writes it off. He's making it that simple. So we are in his mm, ride, Jay, and his ride is pretty bumpy in this way because he doesn't know. He is very extravagant in his kind of talks. It's either very simplified economics that he goes for, or it's a very what do you say? It's a very bubble bubble that he looks forward to. So he's got no moderation in his financial policies. And that's the problem, Jay. The other countries are not waiting for us, they are doing their own way out.
So many things you've mentioned really come back to trust in the United States, trust in the American dollar. I mean, you mentioned that it's been the reserve currency. It's been the most used currency, the most relied upon currency in the world since World War II, and maybe even before that. We really found our groove in World War II because we were strong. We created an industrial nation out of what was not an industrial nation, not so much an industrial nation before World War II. And we held on to that for a long time. There were things that eroded, our reputation in those years. We didn't win the wars after after World War II. That didn't help in terms of trust and confidence. But then now you have Trump, and Trump is doing lickety split. He is undermining that global trust and confidence. For example, taking the airplane from Qatar, that does not build trust and confidence in the United States. Fighting citizens on the street with a brown shirt army, a la, what happened in Germany, that does not build trust and confidence. Suggesting that Canada should be usurped or attacked, Greenland should be usurped or attacked, Mexico should be usurped. For a time, he was talking about Panama. Look what he did with Venezuela. Look what he's doing with Venezuela. All these things, and look what he's doing, which is really not much in the Middle East. All these things suggest that and of course, the American press attacks him. And people around the world, including people who invest in America, are reading this stuff and seeing this stuff. Whatever we see on YouTube, they are seeing on YouTube. Whatever they are seeing on MS Now, whatever we see, they see. So the result is, if you feel that you and your friends who are in, say, the liberal bubble, the liberal world order bubble, see the thing, collapsing, so does everyone else everywhere. They are not going to have the trust and confidence they used to have, and they're going to look for other options. They're going to look for other currencies. They're going to look for other arrangements. So that's on one side. The other side is nothing would please Putin more than to see the dollar fall. Nothing would please Xi Jinping more than to see the dollar fall. And they are trying through BRICS and otherwise to create structures that will, in fact, make the dollar fall. And one thing I wanted to mention is that they may not succeed in coming up with a new currency that would completely displace the dollar. Now, people say, oh, that'll never happen. That the dollar is so strong, the American economy is so strong. Is it? It's so strong that the dollar will always be global king. Well, maybe not. And I suggest to you, and this is a hard one, Roopmati, I suggest to you that if they can't come up with something that the world accepts, such as it has accepted on the basis of trust in American institutions, morality, trust in the American dream, if you want, if they can't displace the dollar and the dollar declines in terms of trust, we will have a free-for-all. We will have global chaos on the currency markets, and that leads to global chaos in the international monetary system. Okay, and this is the hard one now. What happens if we have chaos on currency? It can't be good. It can't be as good as it was. It certainly can't be as good as we would like it to be. What happens in a free-for-all?
Jay, free for all, in the sense that Donald Trump has been working towards making this free for all. He has made such a massive blunder in creating mistrust in the minds of these countries. When they have currencies backed with gold, you remember when Donald Trump said, "Let me go to Fort Knox and see if the gold is still there." That will send a flutter through hearts of millions of people who are dealing just in dollars. Every currency, every commodity is being dealt with at the root of in dollars. And when you're saying that you may not have the gold backing off for these dollars, you are undermining the trust in your own currency. And he has done that time and again. It's not that he would like to, he's spontaneous, but also makes massive blunders in this sense, because printing money to buy and sell commodities all over the world makes America the monetary hegemon of the system. And BRICS has been strategically working. 5 of them were meeting up, BRICS, but now they have expanded newer members, more members who follow the monetary system, who are believing in the kind of working in which they deal in their own currencies. They bypass the SWIFT payments. They bypass the Western rules-based liberal order and deal with indigenous Eastern way of transactions. And believe me, that's the ancient way of transactions that used to happen, the Silk Route, the Indian trading system. They knew what is trading far before the liberal order was set. So they're not new to this dealing in their own indigenous methods. America was the new system that was followed. And to maintain that, you have to maintain your consistency. Through these financial interventions, there is a jerk in the, like you said, in the stock market, in the asset market, in the metal market, in the dollar yen forex rates. So all this, when you have these investors, these small investors on Wall Street, they cannot. They prefer not to add volatility to their pockets, Jay. They prefer consistent stocks. They start talking long term. They start giving up on short term buying and selling. Also, they would never want to get into crypto and Bitcoin. Trump wants them to get into Bitcoin and crypto. You can't make every person do what you want. So the traditional way has always been gold. Silver is the created stock commodity right now, but uh, technically, Jay, all the countries are losing trust not just because of Trump's what do you say interventions, also because of his long-term lack of foresight. There is there's no he's not giving a path in which you know that US is going to do this. You don't know what he's going to do tomorrow morning.
To say nothing about all the corruption.
Oh,
I mean, everybody sees the same news we do, and they can see the corruption happening. And frankly, the corruption seems to be more and in more ways every day. And they are saying this is a country, America is a country that has had more corruption than it ever had before. We don't have anybody out there, any country that can save us. I don't think Putin can ever save us. I don't think Xi Jinping can save us. I don't think Japan can save us. So the question is there any international structure that can save us? When I say us, I mean the dollar is the reserve currency. global stability in the money markets and the currency markets. I ask you about the International Monetary Fund, the World Bank, the UN, the EU, even NATO. Any of these organizations, can they save us, or have they turned their back, or will they turn their back because of Trump's machinations and because it's not in their interest? What do you think? When I say chaos, I'm wondering if somebody can bring order to the chaos. Can anybody bring order to the chaos?
Trump's resignation. It would be good. But Jay, thing is that the IMF, as the financial wing of the UN, is as defunct as the main UN right now, and they are doing nothing to stop, intervene, regulate, monitor the international financial system. So you are having the development of two systems of finance in the international market. One, the dollar led. How long can Europe follow is the question. And if they decide, they had a experiment with the EU euro, but it was not that strong enough. They tried it. They wanted it to be as strong as the dollar, but they're literally going backward as a unit. So let's say that has not worked. And you have the Eastern system, which is developing with the troika of Russia, India, and China. So India is accepting the yuan-based system. Russia is supporting it. Russia and India deal with this kind of yuan financial transactions. They're creating confidence in the yuan, and it's a matter of moments when the African nations will join in. They're already in the the BRICS. So you see, they are coming into this, and when you have so many countries following, this is going to erode the acceptance of the dollar in every transaction, because you are what do you say? You are armed with a dollar when you step outside. Dollar can buy you anything, anywhere, anytime. That is the power that currency holds. But through these, and if the dollar weakens, it is going to erode not only confidence of the common people, also of the markets. When you're setting up businesses, and if you have to set it up, suppose you have to set it up in China or India, and they don't accept the dollar there, these people are going to back their currency because the markets are over there. The markets are not dealing only in dollars now. Earlier, it was every buy sell was in dollar.
I'm thinking of credit cards for consumer spending. And I'm thinking that, not too long ago, India, for example, was dealing as a cash economy. But I walk around with greenbacks in rupees. Now they don't do that. Now they have credit cards, right? And it's a different system. And there's a lot of countries that have credit cards that are translatable into multiple possible currencies. If the dollar declines, they will, some of them anyway, will be translatable, into other currencies, and that will change consumer spending, won't it? And so the result there is that consumer spending is a huge piece of the global economy. Trade is also, but that's kind of connected to consumer spending. I can see pulling a credit card out of my wallet, and it's no longer, the transactions are no longer in dollars, they're in something else. So anyway, my question to you here as we close our show is, what do you think is going to happen? As an investor, what should I invest in? You suggest that gold would be a good investment, or was it silver? You suggest that the market in Wall Street may not be a good investment these days, but you don't sound like you are suggesting we invest in other currencies elsewhere. Maybe we should. What are your thoughts about how I can weather the storm? Clearly from this discussion, a storm is on the horizon. Thank you, Mr. Trump. So how can I weather the storm? How can I protect myself, my family, my community, even my country from suffering over the decline of the dollar as the reserve currency?
Jay, you have touched upon this the right way in that it's going to be digital dollars in the future. They are planning to remove the paper and put it as digital dollar. But that would create an additional problem that the currency that is used in Africa, say for illegal arms or the second-hand traveling, when you don't need to put it as a bank transaction, you need to have it cash to cash dealings, and dollar is used, and you have to give up that kind of dealing. That would also hurt the dollar. And Jay, for investment purposes and all that, this, like we say, it's a metal bubble right now. Silver is needed in solar panels, it's needed in EV batteries, it's needed in so many industrial purposes. And today, because of the price rise in silver, people are holding it in physical form, hoping that it will rise. But silver has fallen down 90%, 80%, 70%, around four times in uh, this financial times that we have. So, having silver, investing in silver, would not be a right proposition. On the other hand, gold is limited in the world. It's the most malleable asset. And we had every scientist, every physicist, Newton even trying to create gold, and they could never succeed in that. So it's one of the most precious metal which stays precious forever. So investing in gold after the price falls a bit further and not in this inflated bubble is the right thing to do. Shares, stocks, crypto, digital, Jay, they are a different story right now. They are untouched story. We don't know, like a new drug is launched in the market. We don't know the after effects till research is done. Crypto and Bitcoin are something of that sort. Unbacked by any government, open market, prices can be anything and whatever you want. So let's just wait and watch the financial markets. Jay, we have a new Fed chair coming up in May. Marsh, he's hawkish in his outlook, and Trump expects him to have a growth rate of 15% when all the economies of the world are growing from 2 to 3%. He expects him to get 15% for America. So it's a nice topic to watch.
We live in a world of limited resources. If we're talking about lithium batteries, and lithium is a part of the EV revolution, but there isn't enough lithium to go around. And I offer you lithium as an investment. It could be that lithium comes into play here. And it's not the only one. There are various scarcities. And I'll go a step further. Water is a problem. And if I establish a water company that has control over water hither and yon, where some countries, for example, Turkey and Iran, reveal the lack of water, and I can sell you shares of water. Water may be a kind of currency, or shares in a company with those resources may become more valuable on global trading. And so we're not done with the selection of resources that could serve essentially as a currency. I agree with you about gold. Why? Because gold has always been, for 1,000 years, gold has always been, it has a certain cachet about it. It's also nice on jewelry, by the way. But I think when we get into a problem with rare earths, when we get into a problem with rare resources, like, for example, water, they may play a role also. So when I say chaos, a chaos in the face of scarcity of things that the world economy needs, has to have, then it may be more than just gold. Your thoughts and your closing thoughts, because we're almost out of time.
Jay, about water, you're so right. 2040 is the time predicted for water to become scarce and precious. So we are as a race heading towards the direction where this misuse of water or drinking water is going to become scarce. And Jay, this finding alternative sources to these precious metals, silver and gold have been the choice for precious from eons and ages, but lithium, like you say, the rare earths that are coming up, Donald Trump has literally caught Zelensky's neck for the rare earths for any kind of security consideration. So he is investing far into the future than we can think. And uh, most richest continent in terms of these metals or precious commodities is Africa. And that is the continent that has been the most undervalued, what do you say, non-player in the financial system, wherein we see a pseudo investment taking place in Africa. Nobody knows. They would come up and they don't know that they're the richest country possible, but today they are nowhere in the picture. You have countries, small countries like Turkey, or taking decisions of buying gold and that becoming a headline. But the gold deposits in Africa are priceless. Nobody discusses that. So that becomes maybe that could be a future hub for hunting down this if the metals become too precious, or if the rare earths become more in value. Jay, we'll have so much of mining done Arctic, in the Arctic, and so our green dream goes to a closing chapter, Jay.
And we haven't talked about uranium and plutonium because as time goes by, more countries have the nuclear need and ability. So all of these things sort of surface in a chaos, and we'll see what happens. We'll have to follow it. But for now, we'll have to leave it there, Roopmati. Thank you very much to our co-host, Dr. Roopmati Khandekar. I'm Jay Fidell, host of Global Connections. In this episode, we have been discussing new monetary systems in our new world, and there's lots of room for discussion there. Thanks to our viewers for watching. We'll see you again soon for the next one. Aloha, Roopmati.
Aloha, Jay. Thank you so very much.